Yesterday I talked about the onset of a hamstring tendon issue that I'm still dealing with 3 years later, and today I'm going to try to unpack why I'm still dealing with this hamstring tendon issue 3 years later, which is actually pretty common with this type of thing. I'm not a doctor, but I do pay really close attention to my body. I spend countless hours researching, and I got a 31 on my ACT. Every soft tissue injury goes through the same basic healing process. Step 1, fill the gap, at first with fluid and inflammation. Step 2, shrink the gap using a temporary tissue that's not very flexible. That'll be important, we'll come back to that. And step 3 is to mend the gap, or to ultimately replace that temporary tissue with permanent tissue. What makes hamstring tendon injuries unique is that they take so long to heal. Example, 3 weeks post hamstring injury, you haven't felt pain in a couple of weeks, so you decide to do some of your normal workouts again. Nothing too crazy, but you do a few lunges, usually no big deal for you. Maybe you feel a little pull, or you might not feel anything at all at the time, but the next day, that pain is creeping back in again. The problem is during phase 2, or shrink the gap, the pain might go away completely. That sounds like a good thing, but the tissue has only regained 20 to 50% of its original strength. So that injured portion is now simultaneously the weakest part of your hamstring and also the least flexible. If you remember, I mentioned that the temporary tissue isn't very flexible, which makes sense because its job is to pull the permanent tissue back together and close that gap. So if it was flexible, it wouldn't be able to do that. So whatever force goes through your hamstring has no choice but to go through that weak point as well. And when it does, you can undo all of the healing that your body's been working on the last few weeks and reset the clock literally back to 0. And if, like me, you skipped hamstring day a few times in the past, your original strength of the tissue might not be that great to start with. So keeping it under 20 or 50%, depending where your capacity is, could be a lot harder than you think. I'm out of time for today, but tomorrow we'll get into my failed rehab attempts in the past, as well as my hopes and plans for the future. Thanks for watching.